Good morning. All this meeting is called to order. Mr. Truman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Thank you very much. All right, on agenda item 3, no cases to reconsider. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
On tax liability cases under agenda item 4, we have 1 tax case on docket 25.
Good morning. For the record, Hugh Daniel, Special Program Appeals. That's correct, Chairman Daniel. There's 1 tax liability case on docket 25. The case number is TD-24-016-0424. Commissioner Esparza.
Agree with the recommendations, grant the motion for withdrawal.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
All right, thank you. That concludes the only case on this docket.
All right, there's no fair housing cases under agenda item 5. Under agenda item 6, we have no child labor cases on docket 25 that are pulled for additional discussion.
That is correct. There are no cases pulled for additional discussion. There is a child labor case to be voted. There is no short form dissent list.
All right, there's no staff recommendation either. Hold on just a second. I move we accept staff recommendations on remaining child labor cases on docket 25.
I second the motion as reflected on the child labor short form list for docket 25.
I concur.
I just want to clarify that there is no short form list for docket 25.
Well,
I'm just hoping to clear.
right.
Yeah.
I just second the motion. I should just say for the child labor for docket 25.
And you concur?
I concur.
Yeah, as well. All right.
Okay.
Very good. Motion passes with, motion passes. Under agenda item 7, we have no wage claim cases on docket 25 pulled for additional discussion.
That is correct. There are remaining cases to be voted on the wage claim for wage claims on docket 25. You should have received the short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on remaining wage claim cases on docket 25.
I second the motion, except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 25.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 25.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Mr. Trollman.
And so,
Is it off? No. Can you not hear me? Is that better?
talk to you.
Oh.
Most Secretary of State would need a child labor case has been essentially posted. So that and then voting.
All right, moving to agenda item 8, we'll consider unemployment insurance cases on docket 25. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 3261358, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. Case involves a pandemic era claim that was filed in March 2020. We found a docket 42 of 2023 that the employer had good cause for missing the first hearing after receiving misleading information in early 2022, that all chargebacks from such claims would be forgiven. For the same reason, the late protest was found timely, and we agree. Concerning the work separation, the employer clearly testified that the claimant quit without giving a reason. Although the employer may have confused the year of the claimant's resignation at the hearing, that can be excused when one considers all of the misleading and conflicting information the employer received from TWC during the claim protest and appeals processes. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer had good cause for missing the first hearing. The employer's protest was timely, and protect the employer's account. In the alternative, the employer had good cause for missing the first hearing. The employer's protest was timely, and hold a rehearing to allow the employer an opportunity to explain the discrepancy between its testimony and the wage records that indicated a different year for the work separation.
The decision should be modified. As previously voted, the employer did not have good cause for its failure to appear at the AT1, and the employer's response to the NMPC was deemed timely. Regarding the chargeback issue, the employer failed to provide credible and consistent testimony to establish the reason for the claimant's separation that occurred in April of 2018. Therefore, the employer failed to establish that the claimant's discharge was for a disqualifying reason, and the employer's account should be subject to charge. Modify the AT. Employer did not establish good cause for AT1. Timely response to the notice of maximum potential chargeback. Employer's account remains charged.
Employer did not establish good cause for AT1. Timely response to the NMPC chargeback.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3477197, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. The claimant filed an appeal, and after waiting several months for a hearing to be scheduled, appeared at the first AT1 hearing, only to be told that it was merely a procedural hearing and that her testimony would not be taken at that time. Several months passed before the claimant was mailed a notice for the second AT1 hearing. Given that the claimant had already appeared at one hearing, especially considering the time that had elapsed between the hearings, it is reasonable that the claimant believed that she did not need to call in for the second hearing, as the claimant had shown by appearing at the procedural hearing that she was pursuing her appeal. Since the claimant appeared at the first hearing only, to be told that the hearing would have to be rescheduled, the claimant made a good faith effort to participate and establish good cause for her failure to appear at the second AT1 hearing. Modify the AT. Claimant established good cause for AT1. Resubmit.
The AT decision is supportable. Claimant missed the continuance of the first hearing due to an oversight on her part. The evidence did not establish that she was misled by the hearing officer into believing that TWC would call her for a following hearing. Thus, the evidence does not show that the claimant had good cause for missing the hearing. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause to miss the hearing. The earnings adjustment is left in effect.
Claimant established good cause for AT1. Resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3535214, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be reversed. The commission previously held that the employer established good cause for missing the AT hearing. Concerning the timeliness of the employer's appeal, the employer at multiple instances during the AT hearing specified they did not receive the initial work separation determination. Since the employer provided credible and persuasive evidence to establish non-receipt, we should find the employer's appeal timely and resubmit the case for merits testimony. As such, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer established good cause for missing the AT hearing. Timely employer appeal and resubmit.
The decision should be modified. I won't dispute the issue of whether the employer had good cause for missing AT1. However, the employer's appeal to the initial determination was late. The employer provided uncertain and inconsistent testimony about whether they received the determination in the mail. The employer's witness could only guess that the employer may have not received the determination. Additionally, the employer's late appeal did not allege non-receipt of the determination, and the determination was not returned to the commission as undeliverable. Therefore, the employer has not presented credible and persuasive testimony required to rebut the presumption of receipt of the determination, and the appeal was properly dismissed as late. Modify the AT, employer had good cause for missing AT1, late employer appeal.
Employer established good cause for AT1, timely employer appeal resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3577-074, Commissioner Trevino.
The claimant's continued claim involved her work for a gig economy employer in self-employment. As such, the continued claim dated December 10th of 2022 should be voided. Void the continued claim, set aside the AT decision, and set aside the job separation and overpayment determinations.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant was dissatisfied with her working conditions. However, by quitting without bringing these to the employer's attention, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. Affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, overpayment.
Set aside the AT, void the continued claim, void the overpayment.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Case number 3586-169, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant testified that he never received the hearing packet, despite monitoring his mail around the time that the packet was sent. This testimony provided was consistent with the claimant's statement in his petition to reopen. The claimant clearly rebutted the presumption of receipt, as he testified that he was the only person who checked the mail, and he testified that the hearing notice was never received at his address. Since the claimant did not receive the hearing notice, the claimant has established good cause for his failure to appear at AT1. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should modify the AT decision regarding good cause because the claimant had inconsistencies with his testimony. He did not credibly rebuke the presumption of receipt. Thus, he failed to establish good cause for his non-appearance. Concerning the job separation, the claimant was discharged for insubordination when he refused to follow instructions. Because the claimant violated the employer's policy, he was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance, misconduct, no charge back, sever adequate response issue.
Claim established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3598-951, Commissioner Sparsa.
Would ask that the commission rehear this case. Although the parties provided information on two separate work events, the hearing officer did not adequately develop the record about the final incident, which led to the claimant's separation. Since questioning the parties about the final incident is critical to understand the nature of the job separation, the commission should conduct a rehearing to question the parties and to admit any additional information concerning the final incident. Please rehear.
The AT decision is not fully supportable. I agree that the claimant established good cause for AT1. Regarding the work separation, the employer discharged the claimant based on a statement from a coworker that the claimant confronted him in the workplace and followed him into an area that the claimant did not have access to. The claimant provided credible sworn testimony denying the allegations of misconduct, and the employer failed to offer any firsthand testimony about the incident or even any specific details. As such, the date of the incident alleged occurred. Therefore, the employer did not meet their burden of proving that the claimant engaged in actions that could be considered misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer, and void adequate response.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 36000727, Commissioner Trevino.
The claimant called in for the AT1 hearing at the hearing start time. Therefore, the claimant established good cause for a failure to appear at AT1. Regarding the timeliness of the appeal issue, the claimant's continued claim involved her work for a gig economy employer in self-employment and is void on its face. Therefore, the claimant's appeal should be deemed timely and the continued claim dated April 2022 should be voided. The claimant established good cause for AT1, deem the complainant's appeal timely, void the continued claim, set aside the AT decision, and set aside the job separation and overpayment determinations.
We should modify the AT decision. The claimant called in at the exact time of the hearing and should have been allowed to participate. Because the claimant should be deemed to have established good cause for a non-appearance, the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony.
Set aside the AT, claim established good cause for AT1, timely claimant appeal, void the continued claim, void the overpayment.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3615242, Commissioner Trevino.
The claimant's continued claim involved his work for a gig economy employer in self-employment. As such, the continued claim dated May 20th of 2023 should be voided. Void the continued claim, set aside the AT decision, and set aside the job separation determination.
We should affirm the AT decision. The employer initiated the job separation when it no longer allowed the claimant to work due to claimant's non-payment of the car rental fees. As such, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment and disqualification is appropriate. If the separation is viewed as a quit because the claimant stopped working due to transportation issues, a personal reason, disqualification is also appropriate. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct.
Set aside the AT, void the continued claim.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Case number 3617041, Commissioner Sparsa.
The AT decision on timeliness should be reversed. The employer testified that it did not receive the termination in question until after the appeal deadline had passed. The employer's testimony was not contradictory on this issue. The fact that the employer filed their appeal to the termination several days after having received it late is not material for two reasons. One, the appeal deadline had already expired by the time the employer received the determination in question. And two, the evidence in this case reflected that the employer did not sit idly by to file its appeal. Accordingly, the employer's appeal should be deemed timely. Reverse the AT decision, timely employer appeal, resubmit.
The AT decision is correct. The employer failed to file a timely appeal. The determination was mailed to the employer's correct address on 6/6 of 23, and the deadline for filing the appeal was 6/20 of 2023. Although the employer claimed that they filed their appeal late because their administrator was out on FMLA leave, the employer's administrator did not go out on FMLA leave until 6/28 of 2023. And the employer did not file its appeal until 7/7 of 2023. The employer has not established any credible exceptions to the timeliness rules, and the commission does not have any jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits due to the employer's late appeal. Affirm the AT late employer appeal.
Timely employer appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3622834, Commissioner Sparsa.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit her job due to medical issues that resulted from her commute. However, the claimant's commute had always been the same since she started working for the employer. The employer also testified that the claimant did not officially request for accommodations. While the claimant was granted FMLA and stated she was put on light duty by a medical professional, she did not provide testimony specifically stating that she was advised by a medical professional to quit her job. As such, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant resigned due to medical reasons. The claimant provided evidence of a medically verified illness. Despite her illness, the claimant showed interest in keeping her job by attempting to continue to work with accommodations after her diagnosis by a medical doctor. However, eventually the claimant's condition made it too difficult to continue commuting to work and left her unable to continue performing certain job functions. Since the claimant left work because of a medically verified illness and showed a genuine interest in retaining her job until her medical condition made it impossible to continue, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leave, bill reimbursing employer.
No voluntary leaving, bill the reimbursing employer.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent. That was the last pulled case on docket 25 for the UI cases. You should have received the short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 25.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 25.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 25.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. This brings us to the end of agenda items 1 through 8. We'll take a short recess. This is agenda item 9, proposed rules for 40 Tax Chapter 804, Jobs and Education for Texans program.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Strona. For the record, I'm Colin Bradley with the Workforce Development Division. It's very odd to say. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval are proposed rule amendments to Chapter 804, Jobs and Education for Texans. These proposed amendments will ensure that this chapter aligns with terminology used in statute and reflects updated program practices. Changes made to the chapter were minor. For example, we changed every occurrence of the phrase charter school to open enrollment charter school to better align with statute. The other change we made was to section 804.22, notice of availability. Essentially, the rules read that the agency would post an NOA. However, this was not required by statute, nor was it standard program practice. So we changed that to reflect our standard program practice of publishing a request for applications. Also, Texas Government Code requires that every 4 years, each state agency review and consider for readoption, revision, or repeal each rule adopted by the agency. TWC reviewed the chapter as part of the proposed rule in accordance with the statutory requirement. Staff recommends submitting the proposed rule for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with the publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the proposal of amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 804, Jobs and Education for Texans Grant Program for publication in the Texas Register and public comment as recommended today by staff.
I second.
Been moved, seconded, motion carries.
Thank you.
This agenda item 10, certification and recertifications of community rehabilitation programs to participate in the purchasing from people with disabilities program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Serna Juan Garcia with the Voc Rehab Division. This morning, for your consideration and possible approval, we have one UCRP that's applying to participate in the Purchasing from People with Disabilities program, as well as 7 CRPs that are applying for recertification. The new CRP is Clean Arc Services in Lexington, Texas. The 7 CRPs that are up for recertification are Beacon Lighthouse in Wichita Falls, Beaumont Products and Services in Beaumont, Burke Center in Lufkin, East Texas Lighthouse for the Blind in Tyler, Easter Seals in Austin, Gateway Community Partners in Jacksonville, and Redirection Opportunities in Longview. Staff recommends the approval of the certification of 1 UCRP and 7 CRPs that are applying for recertification. With that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the certification and recertification of the following community rehabilitation programs for participation in the purchasing from people with disabilities program as recommended today by staff. The certification of Clean Arc Services Incorporated and the recertification of Beacon Lighthouse, Beaumont Product and Services Incorporated, Burke Center, East Texas Lighthouse for the Blind, Easter Seals, Gateway Community Partners, and Redirection Opportunities.
I second.
It's been moved in seconds, motion carries. This is item 11, fiscal years 2025 through 2027 Child Care and Development Fund State Plan.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Reagan Miller with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. This morning, we're bringing you the final Child Care and Development Fund State Plan for fiscal years 25 through 27. The Federal Office of Child Care provides states with the plan template, which describes the policies and strategies for the state's CCDF program. As we've developed the state plan, we've solicited a lot of stakeholder input. We did this through some initial surveys and then through 5 regional stakeholder meetings and 1 Zoom stakeholder meeting in February. Following these stakeholder meetings, you approved the draft state plan, which was published for formal public comment, and we're now bringing you back the final CCDF state plan. One area that we received significant comments on was from stakeholders requesting additional funding to support the child care sector. During our stakeholder meetings, we've clarified that the CCDF state plan is not a vehicle for requesting increases in funding. And the CCDF state plan is developed based upon funding that's already been authorized, approved, and appropriated. There are 10 sections of the state plan. Your material highlights each of these sections, along with some highlights of the information that's included. And we also have a copy of the full state plan in your materials. With your approval, we will submit this to the Federal Office of Child Care. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions, Chairman.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the fiscal years 2025 through 2027 Child Care and Development Fund State Plan as recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Motion carries.
Thank you.
This is agenda item 12, Texas Workforce Commission statewide initiatives as part of the fiscal year 2025 operating budget and fiscal years 2026 and 2027 legislative appropriations request. We did have some items tabled from last week, or is there any further discussion on any of those tabled items?
I'd just like to clarify my request for additional funding for Chapter 133 apprenticeship. That I propose staff look into uncommitted pre-apprenticeship funds that are first available and then recommend adding the $2,088,527 from what's left over WIOA statewide funds for fiscal year 25 contracts, just as a bridge to support the same number of contact hours while preserving the contact hour rate at $4. I will bring forward the exceptional item for consideration for fiscal year 26 and 27. In addition, I request $200,000 from TANF funds to be added to the Foster Youth Network initiative to be spent on outreach efforts to promote the website and ensure foster youth are aware of this resource. That concludes my comments.
On the 133, can you just, if you don't mind, just read through that again so I can understand all the moving parts?
Okay. So I'd like to clarify that for 133, I propose staff look into uncommitted pre-apprenticeship funds that are first available or available first. Then I recommend adding, or whatever's left over, to make it $2,088,527 from WIOA statewide funds for fiscal year 25 contracts, just as a bridge to support the same number of contact hours while preserving the contact hour rate at $4.
Just so I'm clear, so last week, I think we put the GR, obviously. We had $1 million from WIOA, and then there's some additional dollars from TANF that are for chapter 133. Is the $2,088,527, is that in addition to the $1 million from WIOA already?
I believe it would be just so that it could bridge that gap to keep the contact hour rate at $4.
So the total available dollars in excess of the GR funds needs to be $2,088,527.
27, correct.
So we've already voted on $1 million. So we're really kind of talking about $1 million and some change. Am I right on that?
No, it would be the 2,088,527 to make sure that we have that funds available to keep the contact hour rate at $4.
So really, we're saying we want to put 3 million more in.
Correct.
And this is but we don't even know who's applied for 2025 yet, right?
Those numbers, I believe, were supposed to be in on Tuesday of next week, but it's already over what was of last year.
Are you saying staff's going to bring back a paper outlining where the money's going to come from specifically, and we'll vote on it then?
If that's doable, yeah, I would recommend that, just to keep that contact hour rate at $4 so that we could have that discussion.
I would just like to see it all in one place with staff, and it can come from multiple pots of money. I don't think you or I care probably what the source is, as long as it's an available source. So unless you object, either one of you object, I would say have staff prepare a discussion paper doing what you've asked for, bring that back to us for a vote. I don't think it has to be done today, but I think obviously we need to vote on it. So if we bring it back like that, we can at least have all the facts in front of us.
Yeah,
Is
I
there
agree
no
with
objection
that.
to that?
I don't object.
I don't object to that.
All right. Mr. Sarna, staff would bring back a discussion paper on that. I think Commissioner Trevino articulated it well. I just need to see it all in one place.
Yes, sir. We'll have it at the next commission meeting.
Thank you. 200,000 for the Foster Youth Network, outreach. And you said from TANF.
That's correct.
So this is really probably just a one-time only kind of, effort. Based on
Correct.
your choice there.
Yeah, it's going to be just so that it can kick off and they can have that outreach and promote it so that the
Yeah.
children know where it's,
Yeah.
that it's there for them.
So have you thought about what you want that outreach to look like? I mean, is this like internal work? Is it bring somebody, a contractor in? I mean, I don't know to what extent you've probably thought through.
Yeah, it
what
would
you wanna do.
probably be the external company. It's on the RFA that was submitted. So we didn't foresee that when we did the
Yeah.
initial 4 million. So they recommended that they have that outreach and promote the efforts of the website so that they know it's there.
And are we procuring the network itself right now? We're in that process somewhere.
That's correct.
All right. Is there a second for setting aside 200,000 of TANF funds for the Foster Youth Network outreach effort?
I second it.
Been moved to second. All right, we'll set that aside. All right, anything else to come up from the list of tabled items last week?
Chairman, I have two proposals.
Yes.
Just to clarify the proposals that were tabled from last week, 1.5 in WIO funds for supporting transitioning service members specialized, or specifically focused on Central Texas Board and Fort Cavazos and their dislocated worker program. And I've got a discussion paper I could slide you through this one too. The additional proposal, second proposal, involves setting aside $5 million in childcare funds for Texas small businesses and family support programs. Ideally, we want to see this focused on non-traditional 8 to 5, more shift work, small business, restaurants in that service industry, for service industry hospitality folks there too. So I want to see this 5 million just kind of set our initiative to help bridge the critical infrastructure that we're seeing that takes our labor force out of the economy, that we want to be able to provide this to the development boards to address. Again, this is a draft, still open to see how this would work and how we would be able to work with the boards to push this money out statewide.
Let's take up the Fort Cavazos issue first.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have some questions, but certainly defer to you if you have some as well.
Okay, no, I just wanted to say that the Central Texas Workforce Board Dislocated Worker Service is a valuable program that has impact on individuals it serves. So I fully support using the $1.5 million for this program and using the funding source that staff feels are most appropriate.
So on the Fort Cavazos question, this is the same thing we gave them $750,000 for in December. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so at that time, they were waiting to hear back on a federal grant that they had applied for that they ultimately did not get.
That's correct.
And I have a lot of questions about this because it would appear they've been doing work on a federal grant for 2 years. They were operating on a federal grant for the 2 years prior to December when they were doing that. Were they doing these outreach efforts, these specific efforts before that federal grant, or is this as a result of that federal grant?
This is so the federal grant supported the services that they provided to what we're referring to as dislocated workers, service members transitioning out of the Fort Cavazos area. They had continued to apply, and I guess through some recommendations by the DOL, they were I guess they amended their applications, which therefore it was basically rejected. So the services are no longer funded through attempts, I guess, future attempts to bridge the I guess, the missing money or the money that they're basically what they're going to be short by not getting this grant. This is going to be money that serves as a bridge to continue services where they can, in placing those dislocated workers.
Do we know what those services are and how they're different from how they're dealing with other workers in their service area?
I think it's general wraparound services that they continue to provide general, for the way I was explained was they take the same services that they apply to if a company were to shut down and push out, 200, 400 workers, that they help those services, in their workforce development boards, in their offices. This here is focused in working with the military bases to transition those service members before they EAS, so before their end of active service date hits. They're getting to those folks in the military bases. So what this money does is support the staffing and programs that help not only the service members but the families that are in that area too.
And is this board staff or contractor staff?
I don't have that information as of yet. I think it sounded like it was a mix of both. I'm not sure who the Central Texas Board is contracting through, so I haven't seen that contract name up.
And I don't want to infer something here.
Sure.
It sounds like they can't use their regular WIOA allocation to do this type of work, that they claim they're not going to be able to do it with money that they've already received. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
So they can't provide these services to service members unless they have some dedicated pot of money to that.
Yeah, the grant was providing that for the number of service members that leave on an annual basis.
Is that number increased? Is there an increased number at Fort Cavazos of soldiers leaving service?
I have a number of 16,482. That's basically the number of transition, and that's in 2030. I'll have to get a little bit more information on historical numbers that come out.
Do we, I don't know, I'm asking, I see Bob back there. Do we not have other veterans programs? Oh, come on up, Bob. Do we not have other veterans programs here that provide a similar service? Here's, well, he's coming to the mic. I'll let him settle his notes. Here's what I'm like processing in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Skills Development Fund. We've got Lone Star Workforce of the Future. We've got Upskill Texas. We've got a lot of training dollars here that may or may not be applicable to the problem. And I'm wondering if there's other, through our, I think, very good veterans programming here. Is there a similar program as to what this board's trying to do statewide to help service members who are transitioning out of the military?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Bob Garrett, Director of the Texas Veterans Leadership Program. So this is probably one of the most complicated stuff that's out there because of all the different things. To answer the first question about the funding, Mr. Chairman, Central Texas does not get funding, formula funding for WIOA, Jobs for Veterans State Grant, or Wagner Pizer from the federal formula. It does not cover the close to 60,000 military and civilian workforce that is on Fort Cavazos. Fort Bliss doesn't get, or Borderplex doesn't get it for Fort Bliss. For Joint Base San Antonio, Alamo doesn't get it for Joint Base San Antonio. So that is something that's part of federal formula funding. Historically, between 12 to 16,000 separate from Fort Cavazos every year, 12 to 16,000. Fort Cavazos and Fort Bliss, the reason these numbers fluctuate, obviously because of the number of active duty, but Fort Bliss and Fort Cavazos are also transition points for the National Guard and Reserve when they're coming off Title 10. So they have to provide services, and depending on where they go, that will increase or decrease the numbers and also affect the UCX rate. This money specifically, what they use this grant for, there was two things. They have partnered with the Army. The Army has done a very good job on what they call career skills programs. For example, I'll use 4 technicians that tomorrow, GM shifting gears and airstreams. This money has paid for those service members to attend that training. So when they get out, they are a certified technician or for wind turbine or automobiles for Ford or GM, and they move straight into employment. The other piece that this funding supports is supportive services. And I can tell you, we've watched them provide up from $3,500 to $4,000 toolboxes for automobile mechanics, millwrights, and carpenters. These TSMs get that. They're immediately employable, and I can tell you they move straight into employment, especially anything close to any of the defense contractors. There's 2 major companies up there that hire them consistently. In the past, Mr. Chairman, we have used skills development funding. We did have a program here. It was called Skills Transition Program. Central Texas and Fort Hood at the time, Fort Cavazos now, they were doing certifications such as PMP, Lean Six Sigma, and Pharmacy Tech, and IT certifications were the big ones. There was some internal issues using skills development funds, making sure that we connected the service members when they completed with the fund to the employers for the employment piece. But we have since, I think, with the job Central Texas did with the NDW connecting to employers, they got a very good grasp on that employment piece.
Mr. Chairman, I think Chris can answer your question concerning the use of other funding sources.
Good morning. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. Chairman, to your question, I think, which was, can they use their normal allocation to provide these services? And the answer is yes. I think the case that Central Texas makes is that the commission had just approved the allocation, I think, last week. The data factors that are used to distribute WIOA dislocated worker funds does not take into account exiting service members. And Fort Cavazos being such a large base with so many exiting service members, there's this disparity between the amount of funding they get and the amount of exiting service members they're trying to provide services to. Hence, I think that the request for additional WIOA funding.
So I think my issue lies in the fact that we're targeting funds on a one-off basis to one specific board.
Yes, sir.
And on the basis of that, I would have to vote no. But let me talk more broadly about what I think we have an opportunity to do here. So Fort Bliss, probably slightly less, but I would suspect Fort Bliss probably has as many soldiers moving out of active duty into the civilian ranks, probably just proportionate to the number of personnel that are assigned at Fort Bliss.
Correct. They got about 8,000 to 9,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, Bob's going to disagree with me. Chris is going to be with me. We've got 2 naval air stations here, much smaller numbers, but the Navy's putting people out too at some point. And we got some opportunities there. I would venture to say Joint Base San Antonio, which is by far and away the largest installation here. That's primarily basic training and some other things. So they're not getting out, they're getting started. But I'm also thinking about in 2015 or 2016, when the Red River Army Depot closed, we had 800 displaced workers, and it was actually over a year before we got a lot of workers sort of replaced. Most of those were civilians. There were a few active duty personnel there. Some got transferred to other duty stations. Others simply left the military. My point is that there's always activity in this space. And rather than just give one board a second helping of money that they've already asked for. I mean, without being too terribly preachy, they applied for a federal grant, they got it. They put no plan in place on what to do if they didn't get subsequent federal grants.
Right.
And their solution seems to be to come to the commission and say, just keep giving us more money to do the thing that we want to do, irrespective of things that you may or may not want to do. And I think that's probably not the best way for us to do business. What I'm wondering is if you have any interest whatsoever in making this a true statewide program, letting boards, so Borderplex could apply, you know, anybody that has a military installation where we're seeing some kind of dislocated worker coming out of that situation. I saw a report last week from the governor's office where the governor was talking about the economic impact of different military installations, and
That's right.
the civilian jobs and spouse jobs sometimes equal the employment of the military personnel. So I think you just, frankly, you've got a lot of moving parts. It was an impressive report in terms of what the U.S. military does, not just in direct economic development, but the indirect economic development. That you know, and I fully comprehend the issue. I think for me, it's the way this board has handled it. It's probably not the best way, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if we can quickly give this some good thought, stand up a statewide program, a way for boards to apply for that money. Perhaps we can correct the formula issue. Perhaps there's a better way to do this.
So Chairman, I'll support that. Ideally, this was, you know, obviously it's a draft. It is an attempt to raise awareness of what happened in Central Texas, because the third block of those military members that are leaving and their spouses are kind of in a, they're kind of in a, the way I understand is there's a third that just get out of the military and they go back home. There's a third that love Texas so much, we love them too. They stay and they find there's a third that is in the balance. I'd be open to withdraw this request, even with the 1.5 million for directly that, if there's a better opportunity to address this as a statewide. That was my one factor I was strongly considering the fact that this was specifically targeted for Fort Cavazos, and mainly, in my opinion, it's mainly because it was a large population that hits a smaller community. I mean, you know, Killeen and the Central Texas area is no way a small town. It's not 6A football or 6-man football or anything. But again, for that Central Texas region to take on such a big, mass exodus of workers. So I would be willing to, if we're able to discuss something that we could better do as a statewide effort, I'd be very interested in that, as opposed to targeting 1.5 for Central Texas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think if we, because here's one thing, I live on the corner. You didn't really care about that, but I live on the corner, and the other 3 corners are all prior service at Fort Cavazos.
Yeah.
You know, and they all transitioned out at different times. They all had different needs. My point is, you know, I think Killeen probably bears the brunt of it. I think Temple Belton probably get their fair share. But Georgetown on 195, you can get to the PX pretty quick. So Georgetown has plenty of former Fort Cavazos soldiers there living there now. And so, yeah, and that's a different board area. And I think it's the same issue that we're dealing with. I appreciate your idea to withdraw this. I think in light of that, I would say, let's just take this, if you're willing, ask staff to very quickly bring this forward as a statewide proposal with a mechanism for boards to either apply for this money or a formula to distribute this money, so that we don't delay, and we might be able to get some assistance out there for veterans in doing that. And Commissioner Trevino, unless you just have an objection, I would even suggest we don't need to think in terms of $1.5 million. I think if it needs to be a larger dollar amount, staff should recommend that. We can debate that from here.
Right. I know that it's a important program. Appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Esparza, but I do also agree, hearing what the chairman said and then your willingness to pull it. I think there probably is maybe a better way that we could service them and the rest of the boards here in Texas. So I agree with that too.
Okay. I formally pull it back.
No, I think if there's no objection, Mr. Serna, we would ask staff to bring forward discussion paper quickly on a statewide program to assist active duty personnel who are departing the military and their job needs in terms of training, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
Let me add two more caveats to that. Let's don't forget military spouses while we're thinking about that, if we want to make this a part of this program. And the third thing is, to what extent this needs to be wrapped up in this, I don't know. I just don't want to lose sight of this. If there's a way to build into that continued work with TDLR to start solving some issues on why some military licensures don't carry over into civilian occupations, I'd like to make it part of that as well. That's an area I don't think we've probably completed our work in, and if it can get wrapped up in that as well, particularly where someone is, I'm thinking specifically of Army medics and how that might translate to EMTs and other things, firefighters and other assorted things. We just need to be thinking about that and whether or not that needs to be wrapped up in that effort. The most important part is providing resources for service members who are transitioning out of active duty service, to provide them the resources they need to successfully enter the workforce here in Texas. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Is that
Put well.
everybody's okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on then to the question of, thank you, Bob. Childcare funds for Texas small businesses.
So again, this is requesting 5 million in child care funds for Texas Small Business Family Support Program that can aid small business owners, help them cover the cost of child care. The intent would be to enable small business owners to focus on growth and success of their businesses while ensuring their employees have access to affordable health care. Obviously, we all know that we have a huge amount of decline here with child care. My intent is to highlight and to ensure that we still, that whatever the fix may be, the next coming legislative session, that we maintain that employers are, again, a linchpin of have that voice in the policies that bring about the the accomplishment or the initiatives that are going to help with the situation in the state of Texas, but focus mainly on what I want to do here with small businesses. And again, focus on kind of I don't want to say non-traditional. I don't want to say non-traditional, but outside of 8 to 5, the normal regular workday, we have a lot of critical businesses, healthcare, hospitality, restaurants, all that stuff. So I request staff to help develop a discussion paper with my fellow commissioners to consider a future policy, to consider it a future policy agenda meeting, but I want to start the conversation to be able to fund and use 5 million for a statewide fund to support childcare.
Yeah, I won't object to any commissioner asking for a discussion.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't agree or wouldn't disagree either, but there's some questions that probably would pop up that that staff could answer.
All right, Mr. Cerner. All right. Anything else on any of those items?
No, none here.
Let's see. I think we voted on all of them, or we've disposed of all of them off the table. I think we're good.
Yeah.
So we got a discussion paper coming back on, I just want to make sure we got all this done. Got a discussion paper coming back on chapter 133. We've got a discussion paper coming on military career transition. We've got a discussion paper coming on childcare. And did we vote? We voted on the $200,000 and $10 for the outreach for the foster youth network. That's what my notes here say. Yeah, we did. All right.
Okay.
Very good. Moving forward. Let's see. I do not see it.
No.
Lowell has a tie on and he's sitting in Michael Britt's seat, but I think that doesn't mean we have a legislative report. How about an executive director's report? Is there any other order of business come before the commission?
None here.
No, sir.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I was like,
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned. Thank you.